Well, we're about a month in, and Alonia still doesn't understand how chain of command works. It is Saturday, and government employees are receiving an email from hr@opm.gov. Let me show you. As a federal employee, I just want to remind everybody that I do not report to OPM. I report to my supervisor, who reports to their supervisor, who reports to our HR, who reports to a lot of other people, but I do not report to OPM. As you can see, it says, please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Please do not send any classified information. Deadline is this Monday at 11:59 p.m. Alonia also tweeted and said that if we don't respond by the deadline, that it will count as our resignation. But the deadline said this coming Monday. It didn't even have a date listed. They keep sending these emails on Saturdays and then saying that we miss the emails because we're lazy. But I don't think that these people understand that government employees get paid to take home their laptop and work on the weekends, so that would be more taxpayer dollars going to waste. Nowhere in this email does it state that I will be terminated if I miss this deadline. Nowhere in this email does it state that I even have to open the email. So I will be reporting this email as phishing until my manager tells me otherwise. These people seem to think that they can operate outside of the law, outside of employment law, outside of just judiciary processes. So yeah, I don't know. Join your union, organize, talk to people in real life, find people that have similar values to you.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So on this episode of What Are Democrats and Liberals Freaking Out About? It seems as if they're freaking out every day. And the freakouts are getting more and more and more ridiculous, okay? You would think they would find things to not be freaked out about, but here we are, right? They're freaking out about literally everything. The latest freak out has to do with the mass layoffs that are happening in the federal government, in which Elon Musk, the DOGE team, sent out an email to federal employees simply asking them to basically justify what you did, right? Tell us what you did over the past week, right? What did you get done? What did you accomplish? Now, I don't see the issue with this type of email or this type of request, but apparently this request is really a bad thing, right? According to some people, that this is not good to ask employees what they accomplished last week, like to justify our tax dollars being spent for what you're supposed to be doing.
This morning, chaos and confusion across the federal government. Elon Musk now downplaying the ultimatum he issued to federal workers: explain what you've done or resign. Musk initially posting on X, all federal employees will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. Those emails already going out. Sources tell ABC they ask employees to list 5 bullet points of what they've accomplished in the last week. The deadline to respond is tomorrow night. Several hours later, Musk posting, the bar is very low here. An email with some bullet points that make any sense at all is acceptable. Sources tell ABC top officials at the White House were caught off guard, and many federal agencies, from the State Department to NASA, are urging employees to hold off responding. Newly installed FBI Director Kash Patel telling employees to pause on responding to the email. When pressed, a White House official tells ABC it's up to each employee's manager to determine if the answers are satisfactory. And overnight, President Trump praising the latest moves from Musk.
Elon is doing a great job. He's doing a great job.
Taking a victory lap at the Conservative Political Action Conference, touting his mass layoffs of federal workers.
I've ended all of the so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the entire federal government and the private sector.
I want to start with what Elon Musk did on Saturday, which is order all federal employees to list their accomplishments or basically be fired. Can he do that?
No, he can't. Let's look at it a few ways, Martha. First, from a legal perspective, you have a situation where it is a complete overstep for him to be asking people, what did you do in the last week? and then use that as a basis to evaluate whether someone should be retained or fired. As with everybody's employment, things vary from week to week. And I think that if that went to court with an employee who was fired, if Mr. Musk and his minions didn't find what they did in the last week acceptable, there would be very little, if any, legal basis for them to be able to prevail, meaning the government. But secondly, as a former governor, too, from a management perspective, you can see what a clown car this is right now.
Yeah, so apparently this is not an appropriate question, right? It's not appropriate to ask a federal employee, what did you get done? What did you accomplish? Okay, what did our tax dollars produce, right? It's not okay to ask that question. Again, I'm telling you, man, we're really finding out firsthand, again, why the private sector is much more efficient than the government. The government accountability just doesn't exist, right? It just doesn't exist. Okay, it's just a blob that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is why the fat must be trimmed, because this is not an abnormal question, right? These are the type of questions that we expect people who, work for our government, who work for us, that work for taxpayers to be able to answer. Like, for example, politicians, right? Or people that are the head of these agencies, right? Lee Zeldin, he was asked this question on Fox News by Maria Bartiromo, right? What did you do, right? What did you accomplish? And this is how our federal employees, this is how people who work for us, right, should answer the question.
Welcome back. More fraud and abuse exposed as the Environmental Protection Agency reveals President Biden awarded $2 billion buried in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act to a climate group tied to one of his most loyal supporters and friends, former Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. The EPA now trying to claw that money back, which is part of a larger $20 billion held at an outside financial institution. The money distributed as part of the $739 billion Inflation Reduction Act that was passed by congressional Democrats and signed into law by President Biden in 2022. Joining me now is the EPA Administrator, Lee Zeldin. EPA Administrator Zeldin, great to have you this morning. Thank you for being here. I want to get your take on what you've been doing this weekend. So let me get to the Stacey Abrams money in a moment. Tell us what you've been able to do just in the last 2 days.
Working with DOGE, we just cut another 21 grants heading towards DEI and environmental justice, saving the American taxpayers another $67 million. This is in our first round of cuts to find these efficiencies. So this partnership with DOGE has been outstanding. We want the EPA to be operating as efficiently as possible and exceptionally accomplishing our mission. We're on track.
Boom. How easy was that? Maria Bartiromo just asked him the same question. What have you done? What did you accomplish? Right? He said, hey, we cut out some fat. $67 million grant, we cut that out, right? We've been working with DOGE, and this is what we try to do. Apparently, something as basic as answering a question like this is out of bounds, right? That's too much for federal workers. Fascinating stuff. Fascinating.
Let's talk about this outrageous finding that you have had in terms of $2 billion stashed away in the Inflation Reduction Act and sent to Stacey Abrams-linked climate group. Tell me about it.
Maria, this group in 2023 only received $100. This is even like it's a longtime group that has some reputation of handling large budgets. They received $2 billion in 2024. On page 1 of the grant agreement, it tells them that they have 21 days to distribute all $2 billion. And on page 7 of the grant agreement, it is giving them 90 days to complete a training called How to Develop a Budget. I would say that any entity that needs training on how to develop a budget shouldn't be actually distributing money before they take that training, and they certainly shouldn't be receiving $2 billion to be distributing that rapidly. What we've seen is a lot of self-dealing, a lot of conflicts of interest, and instead of spending tens of billions of dollars wisely and maintaining accountability and having oversight, instead they were rushing to just, as they said in a December video that was leaked by a Biden EPA political appointee, they were throwing gold bars off the Titanic. We found the gold bars and we want them back.
Unbelievable. The money.
Totally believable. Totally believable, because this is standard Ponzi scheme behavior here from Democrats, right? This is what they all do, progressives do, okay? What they do is that they get rich via these nonprofits, okay, these entities that end up getting these government funds, this money, right, from their friends, the Democrats who are in power, right, to get the little kickbacks in the form of campaign donations, okay, and that's all done with taxpayer dollars. Your taxpayer dollars are being used, okay? That's what they do. They enrich themselves and their friends, right? And that's what you have happening right now with Joe Biden and Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams is linked to one of these climate nonprofits that receive billions of dollars from the Biden administration, in which, you know, she's a part of, you know, the nonprofits. Now, these nonprofits don't have any real history of having large revenues, right? And then you talk about giving them $1 billion at one time. Why were they selected? Because they were linked to Stacey Abrams, right? This is how Democrats funnel money to their friends. And then people wonder, how in the world do these politicians continue to get richer and richer and richer, right? How they keep getting richer? In Stacey Abrams' case, I don't know what she does for a living, right? I have no clue, okay? But again, the woman is pretty well off, right? She's very well off.
Is being held at what? Citigroup? Why can't you get your hands on that money and claw it back?
This is something that the Justice Department's been working with Citibank on. There's a financial agent agreement with Treasury, an account control agreement with EPA and the primary recipients in the bank. But this is something that the Justice Department has been asking a lot of questions of us. I appreciate their diligence on behalf of the American taxpayer and working with our agency to ensure that we can reestablish that accountability and oversight over these funds. Had a great conversation last night with the president on the topic, again, with Russ Vought, our new head of the Office of Management and Budget. Multiple agencies working to ensure that this funding is not wasted. We're going to go through a process. Unfortunately, Citibank is cooperating with the Justice Department.
So was there criminality here?
That's a question for the Justice Department to answer. I would say that it's a clear-cut case of waste and abuse. The entire scheme, in my opinion, is criminal. I'll give you one other example. There are only 8 primary recipients that received all $20 billion. I told you we're just discussing the Stacey Abrams-linked one that got $2 billion. The director of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund gave $5 billion to his former employer. So he leaves one of these funds, becomes the director of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, and then gives $5 billion to his former employer. I wish I could tell you that this was the end of it. We're talking about pass-throughs, giving to other entities, many respects, those are pass-throughs. And the EPA, in writing, tying our hands behind our back to ensure that we would have as little oversight as possible.
Wow. And you've got tons of rules and regulations that were put into effect under the Biden administration as it hid all of its regulations behind the whole cloud of environmental issues, right? I mean, at the EPA, how much cutting are you doing in terms of rules and regulations throughout government, by the way, not just the EPA?
President Trump campaigned on this. The American public spoke loudly and clearly, and the Supreme Court has weighed in too with the Loper Bright case. They don't want, and agencies should not, be coming up with their own interpretations of what law is. We should be following our obligations under the law. We should be respecting the rule of law. We should be advancing cooperative federalism. It's time to go back to the basics to ensure we are delivering clean air, land, and water, but we're also unleashing energy dominance in this country, and we're powering the great American comeback. That's the priority at the EPA under President Trump.
All right, Lee Zeldin, we're watching your work. EPA Administrator, thanks very much for being here. We so appreciate it.
Well, we definitely need some accountability, right? But again, that is what Democrats are concerned about when it comes to DOGE, right? That's what they're really concerned about. They don't want stories like that coming out where, again, you have these nonprofits linked to these Democrats like Stacey Abrams getting billions of dollars, right? And we know it's happening. Everybody knows it's happening. And what we need is accountability, right? We need some arrest, okay? We need to see some arrest because we all know that there is favoritism, okay, when it comes to handing out these grants, right? And Democrats are sneaky about it, right? They like to sneak and funnel money to their friends. And then they want to boohoo, whine, and cry about Elon Musk. It's just so funny how that works, right? That's why I say that almost everything the Democrats say, everything they complain about, everything they yell about, the things they yell the loudest about, it's just projection, right? It's just projection. That's all it is, right? It is projection. They're projecting onto everybody else what they do, okay? Because they are funneling money to their friends. They use the government to do that. That was basically USAID, right, in a nutshell. That's what that was. That's what a lot of these agencies are. And that's why Democrats and the liberal media, they're upset about this, because once you start following that paper trail, we know where it leads back to. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.